So hello everybody, just a little short video on getting started with Inkscape and learning a little bit about it. So one of the first things you want to do is check out everything in there and make sure you can see things. Want to go to view and make sure all of the items under show hide have been checked. That way you have all the panels you need and the color palette you need, rulers and scroll bars and all the tools. So just make sure all those things have been checked. Okay. Now, if you notice as you scroll over things, there'll be tooltips as you scroll over things. I'm going to draw a few things here. A couple of circles. I'm going to make them different sizes just to have a little difference there. And if you ever have a tool this open and you don't, you need to close it, just hit Escape button. Okay. Notice if you take and put your pointer over a tool, you'll see a tooltip pop up and you can see what that tool is. Okay, now I'm going to now draw a rectangle and let's just create some interest on there. So I'm just free-handed. I'm not trying to do anything in particular with this, and I'm going to draw another rectangle just beneath. Okay. And then I'm going to come up and select this, use the select tool to move things around a little bit and kind of create some interesting looking shapes with what I've got out here. And next I'm going to take and select my shapes that I have, which is, and use some of the colors. If you just click on the color, you can actually change the color by just clicking on the color in the color palette. So just simply clicking on it will change that color. But make sure that object is selected. So next thing I want to show you is that you can specify the stroke and the fill color. So if you select an object and then come down and right click on the object, you can see that there are some you can set the stroke or the fill. So I'm going to select the fill. Then I'm going to pick another color and set the stroke. So you notice how you can specify stroke and fill there. And I'm going to change the color here again. So I'm going to set the stroke. Okay, so that's just the way you can use some of the colors with objects. Okay. Now let's take and do something a little more interesting. Let's going to use the Shift key and select those three objects. Then I'm going to come up to Path and I'm going to come down and choose Exclusion. And I'll create this interesting little shape now. And you notice how when you did that, it grouped everything together there. So that's all in one group. So I still have this rectangle at the bottom. So let me move that around a little bit. And I think I'll add another rectangle here just to create a little more interest. Okay, and that looks pretty good. And let's use the select tool and select both, and I'm going to come up to path again and I'm going to use exclusion. This created an interesting shape there. And then I think I'll add some text in. So I'll just put my initials in and I'll just put 1D, and then I'm going to take and use the select tool and I'm going to copy that and paste. Right click, that's right, I use right click to choose from the pop-up list copy, and then I can choose right click and use paste. Now you can also use Control C and Control V to paste. Now you notice how I've got this, I've moved them around and in an interesting pattern. Now I'm going to take and come up and so I've used exclusion again just to kind of group all of those things together and create a nice shape there. So let's take and see what we can do as far as using some of the filters. So let's take and see if we can find a filter in that is going to be interesting. And to be honest, I did look around at some of the filters before I picked this one. So just play around with them and see if you find one you like. So in this case, I'm going to use one of the overlays. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to choose the colorized turbulent. And I thought that was a pretty interesting looking little shape there. And it actually uses the colors that you start off with. So you want to make sure you have the same colors if that's the color. Notice how I had some different colors, and that looks a little different. So I'm going to take and undo that, and I'm going to change the colors around just a little bit just till I get a pattern I like. So I'm going to change some of those colors here. So let's change that and see what that looks like. Nope, I still don't like that. So I'm going to go back and use undo. So I'm going to use undo to go back to where I was, and then I'm going to change the colors again till I can get a color that I think, hey, that looks pretty good. So let's just take and change that to fill. That's pretty good. And then change the stroke to the pink. There you go. Now let's try that and see how that looks. Okay, and I'm going to use the overlay, colorized turbulent. That looks a little better. I like that. Okay, so I'm going to stick with that. Next thing I want to do is group those two. So now I've got two groups. I want to group those two groups together so that I have just one object that I can select. So I'm going to use the shift key and select both objects. Then I'm going to go up under object. And go down to choose group. And now I just have everything's in one group now. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I can actually take and copy this and paste it somewhere. So I can take and do that. So I can just do lots of things with that, but I want to take and save it off as a file. So I'm going to come back over to File and export PNG image. And when I do, I want to make sure in this case I've got selection because I just want that one group to go. So I've got selection tab selected, and next I've got to make sure I've named and I've chosen the correct file location. So I'm going to take and navigate to the place I want to save the file, and I want to rename the file so I know what I've named it, and put it in a file so I can find it later. So I'm making sure I can put it somewhere where I can find it, and I'm just renaming it now. And I'm going to hit save there, but it's not moved over there yet. So because before I can move it over there, I've got to use that little export button with the green check. So that's when notice it just moved it right over then. So now it's over in that file folder. So now there it is. And here's the file. And that looks pretty cool. And I'm going to take and move that over to my website so everybody can take a look at that. Okay, thank you for watching, and we'll learn more about Inkscape as we go through the class.